Madrid, Spain, higher education. At age of 22, Rizal enrolled in University Central de Madrid on November 3, 1882. University of Central de Madrid. He took and studied medicine, philosophy, and letters. And in San Fernando Academy, Jose Rizal studied fine arts, which consists of French, German, and English. Hall of Arms consists of fencing and shooting. Rizal studied well at Spain by budgeting his money. Rizal didn't gamble or buy wine nor women. In June 21, 1884, Jose Rizal finished his studies, awarded and with honor, licentiate in medicine, doctor medicine degree, philosophy, letters. But among this award, Jose Rizal didn't get his diploma for degree of licentiate in medicine and licentiate philosophy and letters due to his lack of fees and didn't present his thesis. Barcelona, Spain. On June 16, 1882, Rizal arrived in Barcelona since he left Marcellus. The first impression of Rizal in Barcelona was negativity because of the environment were dirty and filthy. But later on it changes when Rizal realized that our people on Barcelona was open-hearted, hospitable, and brave. Rizal wrote his first article in Spain called El Amor Patrio, where the article was a signal shift in Rizal's nationalism. Later on, Rizal gave it to Basilio Teodora Moran, was a publisher of Diaryong Tagalog. Rizal received bad news about the cholera outbreak, and it affected her beloved Leonor Rivera. Paciano advised Rizal to stay in Spain and finish his education. Consuelo Ortega y Perez. In this picture, we're gonna tackle a love triangle, which is Consuelo, Rizal, and Rizal's friend, Eduardo. Leonor Rivera was far away from Rizal. He had a love affection to the daughters of Don Pablo, Consuelo Ortega y Perez. Rizal was drawn by Consuelo's beauty. At the same time, his friend Eduardo Delete have a love for Consuelo. Rizal didn't engage to Consuelo because he's already married to Leonora, and his friend Eduardo loved Consuelo. Masonry. On March 1883, Rizal joined Acacia Masonic Lodge in Madrid. Rizal's motivation was to fight against the friars in the Philippines, which he witnessed, and Rizal loved his fellow Filipino. November 15, 1890, Rizal was transferred in Lodge Solidaridad. He became the Master Mason, received an award, the Diploma Master Mason, by the Grand Orient de France. The propaganda movement. In year 1872 and 1892, Europe developed a sense of national identity, where Europeans divided all nationality including Filipino and Spaniards. It affected all university in Europe, Filipino and Spaniards equality. That's the aim of the propaganda. Rizal joined in and became a leader of the propaganda. Rizal was a great asset because he was a physician, scholar, scientist, and a writer. And Rizal uses a scientific evidence in argument. No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, the two novels of Rizal that given the greatest contribution in Filipinos. Because this book represent the views of friars in the Philippines which Rizal and every Filipino experience. And also, a friend joined the propaganda was Graciano Lopez Gina, was a noted orator, pamphleteer, left Spain in 1880 after published a short novel, Fray Butod, which translated into Brother Fatso. In 1890, Graciano launched a La Solidaridad, which grew main organ on propaganda movement. Marcelo del Pilar joined too. He was a lawyer, anti-friar movement, editor of La Solidaridad, leader of Filipino in Spain. He took over leadership of Filipino community in Spain. Rizal, Jaina, and Del Pilar combined their forces to help the propaganda movement, each with talent. All the people affected by the Europe development joined the propaganda as well, inspired by the three. The Sersolo Hispano-Filipino was formed of Association of Hispanic Filipinos. In 1882, Sassuelo Hispano-Filipino was born, founded by Filipino and Spaniards, was pushing the government reform, Revista del Sassuelo Hispano-Filipino. Its address to all abuses and harsh treatment that Filipino experience, as well the changes of desire to Spanish government authorities. Lack of leadership, the group Zarzuela Hispano-Filipino didn't last long because lack of leadership. When Rizal first arrived at Madrid, he discovered a small group called Zarzuelo Hispano-Filipino. Juan Ataide acted as a leader of a small Zarzuelo Hispano-Filipino, Spaniards from Manila, and a retired major of infantry. Rizal contributed an article originally written from Diaryong Tagalog, but there is a disagreement because of the age of Ataide in his retirement. January 29, 1883, Rizal wrote a letter to his family. Code the majority to talk about a lot, but when it comes putting up money, they back out. Rizal talked about how the society itself is falling apart without money contribution. School demonstration. In November 20, 21, 22, 1884, Rizal involved at school demonstration. On November 20, 21, and 22, 1884, the Syrian city of Madrid exploded in bloody riots by the students of Central University. Rizal and the other Filipino students participated together with Cuban, Mexican, Peruvian, and Spanish students in tumult. Rizal and students were fighting for Dr. Miguel, the freedom of science and the teacher. Catholic Bishop Spain condemned such a liberal viewpoint. Students of university took the demonstration and ended up hurt or injured. Rizal almost detained by the authorities if he had been planned to flee with his friend Valentin Ventura. Financial problem. Rizal's family experienced drought and locusts that caused financial breakdown to Rizal's family. Rizal's allowance sometimes arrived late. Rizal spent a time without eating, but Rizal find a way to earn money by participating competition and win. In this situation, Rizal find a way in order for him to survive and keep fighting and keep winning even though his family cannot afford him such much. Luna and Hidalgo's victory. In June 25, 1884, victory of Juan Luna and Felix Restoration Hidalgo in Madrid. Luna won the first place, called Spolarium. Hidalgo won the second place, called Christian Virgin exposed the populace. Rizal was invited at blockade in behalf of Filipino. These are the lines of Rizal in his speech. Genius knows no country. Genius is everywhere, and genius like light, air, the patrimony of everybody, cosmopolitan like space, fire, and God. It made a remark not just a Filipino, but in Spaniards too. I see luminous archer is that rise other region to blend on their own height impelled by the sympathy of common origin, and from that height to unite two peoples with internal bonds. I love how Rizal described both of the pride of Filipino and Spain. Rizal described as an archer that could aim and hit the target what they desired, which is the sympathy in unity by two archers. They can bond both two peoples, which is Filipino and Spaniards. Luna's work, Spolarium. Not mute is heard the tumult of the throng, cry of slaves, and metallic rattle of the armor on the corpses, the suba of orphan, the hum of prayers with such mass of realism as is hard to crush of thunder amid the roar of the cataracts or fearful and frightful of earthquake. Rizal described the works of Luna even though it's a painting that doesn't have the sound but yet still can hear every images in the painting, like the orphan crying prayers and many more. Hidalgo's work Christian Virgin exposed to the populace revealed the feelings of the purest, kindest ideal expressions of melancholy, beauty, and weakness victim of brute force. Hidalgo's work talk about the beauty itself, that how pure kind it talks about light and harmony. Luna and Hidalgo's work together. Luna find shed the contrast, the fading lights, in the mysterious, in the terrible, like an echo in the dark storm of the tropics, and thunderbolts, and the destructive eruption of volcanoes. Hidalgo's work find all its light, color, harmony, feelings, and clearness. Rizal described both painting have their own messages to tell, where how Luna's work talk about struggles and chaos, while Hidalgo's work talk about light and beauty of the world, specialization and medicine and his other achievement. France and Germany. Rizal wants to finish his medicine study so he can cure his mother deteriorating eyes condition and observe Europe's customs and lifestyle, which was Rizal's secret mission. After finishing his study in Central University of Madrid, he went to Paris. Then Rizal traveled in Paris in 1885. Rizal was 24 years old at that time. Apprentice of Dr. Louis de Waker. Dr. Louis was ophthalmologist. Worked for 4 months. While working as an apprentice of Dr. Louis de Waker, he sometimes visited Luna and Hidalgo. Luna's studio. Rizal spent his happy hours to Luna's studio. Rizal improved his own painting, and Luna showed Rizal the death of Cleopatra. Rizal asked for advice from Luna and improved his painting and witnessed in front of him the beauty of Luna's painting, the death of Cleopatra. Heidelberg, Germany. After gaining enough experience to Dr. Louis, in February 1, 1886, Rizal arrived at Germany. February 3, 1886, shared a German boarding house mate. When a German friend found out that Rizal was good at playing chess, they invited him to their chess club and became a member of Member Chess Players Club. After a few days, Rizal got transferred in boarding house near University of Heidelberg. Jose Rizal worked at University Eye Hospital under Dr. Otto Becker. Dr. Otto Becker and Prof. Wilhelm Kiuni studied under by those to their lecture. Jose Rizal sometimes go out like visiting sports grounds, some theaters, and old churches. In April 22, 1886, it was springtime, Rizal made a poem inspired by the flower near Neckar River. In July 31, 1886, Rizal wrote his first letter in German. August 6, 1886, University of Heidelberg celebrated a celebration of the 5th centennial Rizal sojourning. After 3 days, it's time of departure of Rizal. In August 9, 1886, departure day. Rizal was sad because he fell in love to the place and he came to Leipzig. In August 14, 1886, Rizal arrived in Leipzig, attended some lecture of University of Leipzig, became acquainted of Prof. Friedrich Ritschl and Dr. Hans Meyer. Prof was a German historian while the doctor was an anthropologist. Swiss Independence and Fairy Tale translated into Filipino by Jose Rizal. William Tales was the Swiss independence and Fairy Tale was owned by Hans Christian Andersen. Rizal had 2.5 months to stay. He spent his time correcting and improving his second novel, and Rizal earned some money as a proofreader for published company. Dresden. October 29, 1886, Rizal left Leipzig. Arrived Dresden. He met the director of Anthropological and Ethnological Museum, which is Dr. Adolf Meyer. Rizal wrote, "Truly, I have never in my life heard a mass whose music and greater sublimity and intuition." Rizal only lasts 2 days in the town of Dresden and arrived at Berlin evening. Jose Rizal arrived at Berlin in November 1, 1886. Rizal liked Berlin because of the scientific atmosphere and lacked racial prejudice. Jose Rizal met the author of The Trouble in the Philippines, which is Dr. Fyodor Jagor. Then, Dr. Jagor introduced Rizal to well-known anthropologists, which is Dr. Rudolf Virchow and Dr. Hans Virchow, son of Rudolf, professor of descriptive anatomy. Dr. Carl Ernest Schwegner, well-known anthropologist, and hired Rizal to work at his clinic. Jose Rizal was the first Asian awarded of Anthropological Society, Ethnological Society, and Geographical Society in Berlin. Dr. Berko recognized and invited Rizal as a speaker of Ethnological Society. Rizal published a scholarly paper titled Taglesche Verkons, Tagalog Metrical Arts, received a positive feedback. Rizal lived his life in medical life where he is assistant of Dr. Van Gogh and went to lecture at night. Madame Lucia Serdoli, prof of Rizal in French language, where Rizal was learning and improving his French language. Publication of Noli Me Tangere in Berlin. Despite of physical injury of Rizal, he published Noli Me Tangere. On March 21, 1887, the day Rizal published in public the Noli Me Tangere, translated into Touch Me Not. The novel was taken by the Bible and German and Philippines. The Noli Me Tangere was created in German, finished some few chapters, and finished it in the Philippines, but deletes some of pages of Elias and Salome. Rizal found a printer house, the Berliner Buchdruckerei Action Gesellschaft. Rizal was charged at the lowest rate, which is 300 for 2,000 copies, and Rizal's friend was there to help him, which is Graciano Lopez, Jaina, Evaristo Aguero, Eduardo Delete, Julio Lorente, Malicio Figueroa, and Valentin Ventura was the present during the proposal. The financial and major problem. Therein published in Berlin. Maximo Vela helps Rizal to finish and help Rizal to his financial problem in publishing the novel. Dr. Vela helped Rizal to pay a publisher to publish Rizal novel. Passport. Because of Rizal didn't have the money to buy a passport, he went to a German police station to apologize to his mistake. But the German police suspected Rizal as a French spy because he came from French and was solely speaking of French language. But the German police let him go because he was a Filipino physician. When No Limit Hungary was published, Vlomentret and Dr. Antonio Jaina, Mariano Punch, and Felix R. Hidalgo, Rizal close friends, received a copy right away. Cancer patient who, even with the greatest touch, awakens the sharpest pain. This was Rizal comparison to the Philippine situation. He stated this after witness a terrible view of the Philippines when the priors or Spaniards in the Philippines. Rizal's speech, "To my fatherland," recorded in the history of human suffering, is a cancer of so malignant a character that the least touch irritates it and awakens in it the sharpest pain. Thus, How many times, when the midst of the modern civilizations, I have wished to call thee before me, now to accompany me in the memories, now to compare thee with other countries, hath thy dear image presented itself, showing a social cancer like to that other, desiring thy welfare, which is our own, and seeking the best treatment, and I will do with thee what the ancient did with the sick, exposing them on the step of the temple, so that everyone who came to invoke the divinity might offer them a remedy. And to this end I will strive to reproduce thy conditions faithfully, without discrimination. I will rise a part of the veil that covers the evil, suffering the truth, everything, even vanity itself. Since, as thy son, I am conscious that I also suffer from the defects and weaknesses. Rizal's Grand Tour of Europe with Viola. After publishing Rizal's novel and received his allowance from Pasiano, he paid back to his friend who helped him publishing his book, especially Viola. Rizal's pencil sketch, and we can see the Rizal pencil sketch of Doctor on the right side. March 11, 1886, Rizal left Berlin and went to Europe, he visited museum arts where he met Dr. Fyodor Chagor. Copernicus tombed at Fragio, and they went to Vienna to see some churches, museum, arts, galleries, theaters, and public park. On May 24, 1887, Rizal left Benya and see the site of the Nobe River. Jose Rizal celebrated his 26th birthday at Geneva by treating Dr. Viola. Both decided to part ways, where Viola went back to Barcelona and Rizal continued his journey to Italy. Rizal visited Turin, Milan, Venice, Florence, Rome, and he also visited some of the churches St. Peter and St. Paul.
First homecoming, Rizal's life, higher education and life abroad. Rizal studied in Europe between 1882 to 1887. August 1887, he returned in the Philippines after a 5-year adventure in Europe. He practiced medicine in Calamba. Rizal has 2 reasons of returning home. 1. To operate on his mother's eyes. 2. To learn how his novel No Limit Tangheri has affected the lives of Filipinos. On July 3, 1887, Rizal boarded steamer Gemna, the same steamer he boarded 5 years ago. July 30th, he transferred to a different steamer in Saigon. The steamer Haipong was bound for Manila and set sail on August 2. On August 5, 1887, he arrived in Manila with a smile on his face, knowing he was back in the Philippine soil. He returned to Calamba on August 8, 1887. His brother Panciano stayed to protect Rizal from any enemy attacks. He opened medical clinic in Calamba, and his first patient was his mother. News traveled about a great German doctor. Patients from Manila and provinces flocked to see him. Rizal opened a gym for young people where he taught European sports. Trying his talents to get interested in gymnastics, fencing, and shooting, while avoiding cockfights and gambling. Rizal was unable to see his beloved Leonor Rivera. He received a letter from Governor General Emilio Terrero. Governor General was impressed on Rizal's explanation in his book No Limit Tangheri, and now Rizal's life was in jeopardy. Messenger Pedro Payo, the Archbishop of Manila, sent a copy of the novel to Father Rector Gregorio Echevarria of the University of Santo Tomas for examination. The novel was banned after Governor General sent it to the Permanent Commission of Censorship, which was made up of priests and lay people, for further investigation and verification. The findings were consistent, and it was recommended that the novel would be banned from being imported, reproduced, or circulated in the Philippines. It was Reverend Vicente Garcia among those who supported him and had the best defense. As a result, Father Garcia made the following statement. 1. Jose Rizal was a graduate of Spanish universities and a recipient of scholastic honors, so he couldn't be an ignorant. 2. Jose Rizal does not criticize the church or Spain because what he criticizes in the novel are bad Spanish officials, not Spain, and bad corrupt friars, not the church. 3. Finally, the friars believe that those who have read the novel have committed a mortal sin, so Father Rodriguez has also committed a mortal sin. Rizal advised the tenants on land disputes and even convinced the town to report the full amount of rents paid. Rizal remarried by the death of his older sister Olympia, and the unfounded rumor spread by his enemies that he was a German spy, an agent of Bismarck, a Protestant, a Mason, a witch, a soul beyond salvation. In 1888, Rizal left Calamba because Rizal's parents and Governor General Terrero, who advised him to leave because his life was in danger. Rizal's second travels abroad from 1888 to 1892. February 1888, at the age of 27, an enraged victim of human injustice, and his second journey began at this point. February 3, 1888, he did not disembark from the ship because he was sad and sick after a 6-month stay in Colombo. February 8, 1888, arrived in Hong Kong and stayed at the Victoria Hotel. Jose Veranda, a Spaniard, was following and have been ordered to spy on Rizal. February 11 to 13, 1888, he celebrated Chinese New Year at his hotel and saw the raucous Chinese theater, Marathon Laureate Party, the world's longest meal. February 2022, 1888, Rizal sailed from Hong Kong to Japan aboard Oceanic, an American steamer. February 28 to April 13, 1888, Rizal visited the land of the cherry blossom, was one of the happiest times of his life. February 8, 1888, Rizal arrived in Yokohama and stayed at the Grand Hotel. March 2 to 7, 1888, he arrived in Tokyo and booked a room in Tokyo Hotel where he stayed at that time. Juan Pires Caballero, the secretary of the Spanish legation who invited Rizal to leave and paid a visit. Places Rizal most visited are museums, libraries, art galleries, and shrines. Rizal studied and traveled. He studied Japanese drama, arts, music, judo, and traveled to charming villages including Meguro, Nikko, Hackney, Miyanoshita, and others. Western music. Rizal admired their performances and was surprised when the band abruptly stopped playing and began speaking Tagalog. Si Kaosoy or Lady Osesan. Rizal and Lady Osesan shared the same passion in arts that led to their romance. Rizal saw Osesan his ideal womanhood and was almost enticed by her beauty and affection. Rizal's diary of his undying love and affection to Osesan. Your image lives in my memory, and undoubtedly, I am always thinking of you. Your name lives in the sight of my lips. Your image accompanies and animates all my thoughts. Osesan and Rizal's love story. On April 13, 1888, he left Japan with a heavy heart, knowing that he and his beloved Osesan would never see this beautiful land again. Rizal's love for his fatherland and his mission compelled him to refuse on the Spanish legation job offer. He boarded the Belgic and English steamer on this date for U.S. With heavy heart, his love for Osesan and Japan will live on his memories. Teacher Sohiro, he met a Japanese journalist, novelist, and human rights activist when he boarded the steamer Belgium, who was forced to flee his country by the Japanese government. December 1, 1888, Teacher served Rizal's companion for the duration of their journey from San Francisco to London. Rizal told Teacher about his life and was enthralled by Rizal's admirable character. Rizal and Teacher parted ways on this date. Rizal's voyage after Japan's trip. April 28, 1888, Rizal arrived in America for the first time. In his arrival, he witnessed discriminatory treatment of Chinese and Negroes. He had positive and negative impressions about the United States, but lack of racial equality left an unfavorable impression. May 13, 1888, he arrived in New York City and was able to see George Washington's relics, magnificent Brooklyn Bridge, and Statue of Liberty. Rizal's trip ended on May 16, 1888. May 16, 1888, Rizal boarded the city of Rome and sailed from New York to Liverpool. He was on board the Great Eastern, described as the second largest ship in the world. Return to Europe. On May 1888 to March 1889, Rizal lived in London for three reasons. One, in order to improve his command of the English language. Two, to research and annotate Morgan's success de las Islas Filipinas, which he heard was preserved in the British Museum. Three, London was a safe haven from Spanish tyranny's attacks. On May 25, 1888, Rizal traveled to London and stayed at the home of Dr. Antonio Maria Regidor, a lawyer. Spent most of his time at the British Museum, where he studied Morga's successes and other rare historical books about the Philippines. He spent Sundays at the home of Dr. Ross, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs librarian. He was dubbed a pearl of a man by him. On September 1888, Rizal went to Paris to look for more historical materials in the Bibliothèque Nationale. Juan Luna and his wife entertained him and returned to London after reading the old books. December 11, 1888, he traveled to Spain, visiting Madrid and Barcelona. He met Marcelo H. del Pilar and Mariano Ponce, two titans of propaganda movement. December 24, 1888, Rizal returned to London and spent Christmas and New Year's Day with the Beckets. Mrs. Beckett gave him a book, The Life and Adventures of Valentine Box, the ventriloquist. Rizal was elected honorary president of Association La Solidaridad, a patriotic society dedicated to reform. On December 13, 1888, Filipino organization realized when La Solidaridad was founded in Barcelona on this date. La Solidaridad was officially inaugurated and Rizal published his first article, Los Agricultores Filipinos, in the La Solidaridad periodic newspaper founded by Graciano Lopez Haina on March 25, 1889. On March 19, 1889, Rizal left London for Paris. He was sad because he had so many fond memories of London. Rizal established Redemption de los Malaysia, Redemption of Malays, Society in Paris. The Indolence of the Filipinos. Por Telefono. January 28, 1890, Rizal left Paris for Brussels, Belgium's capital. Rizal was working on his second novel, El Filibusterismo. Wrote articles for La Solidaridad. He learned the persecution of his family and townmates in Calamba, results of Calamba Estates conflict. Received a letter from his brother Panciano about the eviction filed, and a letter from his sister Lucia on how his family and neighbors suffered. On June 2, 1890, he received a tragic news from his sister Saturnina about his brother-in-law's deportation. August 1890, Rizal arrived in Madrid, Spain. More dreadful news reached Rizal about the Dominicans' eviction order and the deportation of Panciano, Antonio, Silvestri, Tawong, and Dandoy to Mindoro. He was also informed by his sister Saturnina that their parents had been evicted from their home. On July 5, 1891, Rizal left Brussels for Ghent, where the cost of printing for his novel El Filibusterismo is cheaper. F. Meyer van Loo Press was willing to print his book on a monthly basis. Rizal received money from Jose Ma Bas and 200 pesos from Evaristo Arias in exchange for the copies of Morga's successes. Valentin Ventura immediately sent Rizal the necessary funds when he learned on his predicament. Rizal's second novel, El Filibusterismo, was dedicated to the martyrdom of the Gomburza. El Filibusterismo was written some 4 or 5 years after No Limitang Heri. The book represents Rizal's more mature judgment on political and social conditions, disappointments, and discouragements he had encountered to reform. The first edition is of special interest, and as the writing of it was one of the grounds of accusation against him when he was condemned to death in 1896. Gomburza. It reads, to the memory of the priest, Don Mariano Gomez, 85 years old, Don Jose Burgos, 30 years old, and Don Jacinto Zamora, 35 years old, executed in Bagumbayan Field on the 20th of February 1872. The charge, by refusing to degrade you, has placed in doubt the crime that has been imputed to you. The government, by surrounding your trials with mystery and shadows, causes the belief that there was some error committed in fatal moments. And all, the Philippines, by worshipping your memory and calling you martyrs, in no sense recognizes your culpability. In so far, therefore, as your complicity in the Cavite Mutiny is not clearly proved, as you may or may not have been patriots, and as you may or may not have cherished sentiments for justice and for liberty, I have the right to dedicate my work to you as victims of the evil which I undertake to combat. And while we await expectantly upon Spain, someday to restore your good name and cease to be answerable by your death, let these pages serve as a tardy wreath of dried leaves over your unknown tombs, and let it be understood that everyone who without clear proofs attacks your memory stains his hands in your blood. Jose Rizal. Rizal in Hong Kong. Rizal left Europe for Hong Kong after the publication of El Filipos Turismo from November 1891 to June 1892. October 18, 1891, Rizal boarded a steamer Melbourne in Marseilles bound for Hong Kong. Began to write his third Tagalog novel, and Rizal's unfinished novel included Macamesa, The Pitan, and another untitled novel. November 20, 1891, Rizal arrived in Hong Kong and was welcomed by Jose Bas and lived at 5D Aguilar Street, where he also established his medical clinic. On December 1891, Rizal was relieved to see his father, brother, and Silvestre Ubaldo arrived in Hong Kong before Christmas in 1891. Soon after, his mother and sisters Lucia, Josefa, and Trinidad arrived. This Christmas was one of the happiest in Rizal's life because he had a family reunion. In Hong Kong, Rizal practiced ophthalmology. He rose to prominence as a physician in that city. While in Hong Kong, he prepared the constitution of another civic society that later on to be called the La Liga Filipina. Second homecoming. Rizal made the decision to return to Manila in May 1892 in spite of protest from his family and friends. He gave his friend Dr. Marquez two sealed letters with the inscription, "To be opened after my death." Rizal and his sister Lucia arrived in Manila around noon on June 26, 1892. He stayed at the Hotel de Oriented, which overlooked the Binondo Church. Rizal boarded a train into Tuban Station on June 27 to visit his friends. On Wednesday, July 6, Rizal returned to Malacanang Palace to continue his series of interviews. The Governor-General then handed him some printed leaflets, Pobres Frailes, that had allegedly been discovered in Lucia's pillowcases. Rizal claimed he didn't have the leaflets because they were thoroughly searched when they arrived from Hong Kong, and authorities found nothing in his possession. Despite his denials and repeated demands for an investigation, he was arrested and taken to Fort Santiago. Thank you.